Welcome to early 2019, where video cameras can at best do 4K 60 frames per second, and we like it. Wait, there's a camera that's under $2,000 and can do 4K 120 frames per second? What trickery is this? The Zcam E2. Is it any good or just a spec sheet given life? Let's find out. What's up everyone, I'm the Everyday Dad, and if I can figure it out, you can figure it out. Let's talk about the Zcam E2 for a second. This bad boy is the second iteration of what was kind of considered to be a micro four thirds action camera in the E1. Yeah, how crazy does that sound? Well, to me that sounds like crazy as a fox levels of awesome, and actually maybe I need to try one of those out because that sounds great. But before we get too far into the video, however, I do want to thank my friends over at B&H Photo for sending this to me to check out. If you'd like to get your very own E2, there will be links in the description, let's don't drop it, below. And you know what? I love checking out purely video cameras because then I don't need to make a disclaimer or say how I'm not going to talk about photography. Spoilers though, I really like video and not photography. Blech. Alright, business up front but party in the rear. Let's start digging into this camera and see if this can be an asset to an online content creator. Or is it more for working pros in other video realms, not necessarily the YouTube/online video realms, which is the sphere that I, duke it out in. To do this, we're gonna see how the Zcam fares when stacked up against the 4 columns of quality. And okay, we paused the script, we paused for a second, team to team here. So this is one of the weirdest cameras I've checked out in recent memory. I've spent 2 days playing around with this camera, like really digging into it. And as we'll talk here in a minute, we'll talk about the specs and the features and how the image looks and all that stuff shortly, but there are some things that where this is just, it's both great and frustrating all at the same time, so this has been like a mind-blowing experience. Okay, back to the regular video. First up, image quality. Image quality is why people buy cameras, right? And so the Zcam E2 does have a micro four thirds sensor capable of recording in up to 4K 120 frames per second, which that's still crazy to say out loud. It has a 10 megapixel wide dynamic range micro four thirds CMOS sensor. That's what they say on the spec sheet. Internally, it can again record in up to 4K 120 frames per second and 1080p in up to 240 frames per second. It does have continuous autofocus, but I couldn't get it to work at all. So when we say here in a little bit that it doesn't have it, it's the same thing because I can't get it to work. Even though I have the continuous autofocus selection selected in the video, it doesn't work. And as far as audio goes, it comes equipped with a mini XLR port on the back and a 3.5mm audio jack on the side. And a big benefit is the E2 can record this in Apple ProRes to its 1 CFast card slot. Now, according to the spec sheet, it can also record to a solid state drive, which again, I've been trying to do, and it says it's recording, but then when I take that SSD and plug it into my computer afterwards, it's not detectable, and I can't pull the footage out of it. Again, this has been the weirdest camera I've ever checked out. Now, when you do actually record to something like my Ninja 5, I will say the image quality looks pretty darn good. I mean, I would hope so given the price tag, but I'm always kind of wary on cameras that promise more than really seems possible, and the Zcam is promising a lot. I do think they have released a camera here with perfectly usable image quality, and that 4K 120 frames per second is a very big rarity for cameras, especially in this price point. Like, I can't think of another camera that does 4K 120 frames per second at, $2,000. But don't take my word for it. Let's hop outside real quick for a, not vlogging because I have a broken toe in this case, but an outdoor video test. Welcome to the video test of the Zcam E2. Now, when I did that jump right there, you may not know this, but I have a broken toe, so I did that one-footed. Expert level stuff. So again, broken toe, so I'm not gonna be able to do like my more traditional vlogging test, so we're just gonna do like a video test of the Zcam out here. We got the GH5, we got the Zcam here. We're gonna set them both up and just see how like not the vlogging, because I don't think you can vlog with this kind of camera, because I mean, look at all this stuff. But yeah, so it's a pretty good camera that I've been using so far. I've really been enjoying it. So let's see how the video quality looks when we're out in like I guess a vloggy-ish kind of scenario. So let's focus you properly. So what's up everybody? This is the video quality, this is the almost vlogging quality test of the Zcam E2. You guys can see that. Let's move you over here. Whoop. There it is. So hey, yeah, this is the video/vlogging test where you can kind of see what kind of image quality you could expect if you wanted to use this as a run and gun, as like an go everywhere with you kind of camera. The problem you're gonna run into though is unlike the GH5, which even when I have the continuous autofocus turned off, I can still, here, you guys can, look, it's weird having two cameras. Even though the GH5, when I have the continuous autofocus turned off, I can do this, and it'll focus in manual focus. This doesn't have the same thing since it doesn't have its own screen. I'm using a recorder right now, my Atomos Ninja 5, to record this. So I have to dial in the focus with the manual focus on the camera, which isn't terrible, but when it's bright out and I can barely see, you know, it's hopefully we're in focus. But yeah, this is the video test that you can expect to get out of the Zcam E2. I've been impressed with this darn little thing. It's got a powerful punch for such a tiny camera. I mean, even the GH5 with this fully rigged out, even my fully rigged out GH5 is bigger than this Zcam E2, and this Zcam E2 can do like some crazy recording specs that we'll hear in a second. But yeah, video quality test. We're not gonna vlog, not a vlogging test, because one of us is an idiot and broke his toe. It's me. Okay, back to the video. Okay, and this is the indoor/studio test of the Zcam E2. So we've got it set to, I mean, there is no real auto settings on a camera like this, but we've got it set to about as basic as possible. We've got the Lumix 12-35 2.8 on as the lens, which is set at f2.8. The audio you're currently hearing is coming from the Rode VideoMic Pro Plus. It's not through the XLR mic that we heard on the GH5 a little bit ago. But yeah, this is kind of, you know, if you wanted to use this as a studio camera, I wouldn't, sometimes I call this a low light camera because I have big sensored cameras that I can keep this pretty low light in here, but I've got my light over here set to 100% and it's blinding me right now. I'm not used to it being this bright. It's like the sun is like right over here. So it's not a low light test, but it is a indoor studio test if you wanted to use this as a studio camera. As we'll talk here in a minute, there is an app that I can't get to work that would make this a whole lot easier if I could control the focus from here. To set this up, I had to get up, dial in the focus, come back. Am I in focus? Nope, okay, back up, dial it a little bit. So we had to mess around with it to get this to work. So, indoor studio test. Back to the video. Next up, the second column, how easy is it to use the body and set it up before hitting the record button? And as you can see here, can you hear this? Like, this thing's solidly made of metal. This body is incredibly well built and it feels very high quality. It's got lots of mounting options and every connection you could want or hope for is built straight into the body. Something that I generally always buy when I first get a camera is a cage. Like up here, there's two right there, there's two more in this box. I have like 6 cages here at the office for cameras that I don't even have anymore, but I might get them again, so I keep the cage around just in case. Well, the E2 doesn't really need a cage, so to speak, because it's got mounting points on the side, mounting points on the side, mounting points on top and the bottom. I mean, this is amazing, and I really wish more camera companies would embrace more mounting points than just the tripod mount on the bottom and a hot shoe mount on top. I mean, this, I love how much stuff that you can mount on this thing. Like, this is legitimately awesome. But, you know, here's kind of where we start coming into some hiccups. Now, again, I'm not a videographer nor any kind of cinema professional guy, so my needs are different than other, you know, pros' needs. Consider that as I go through what I think of the body. Cinema cameras are sometimes pretty bare bones setups. Now in this instance, much like a RED camera, it's called the brain, and that's what includes the sensor. So all you really get when you buy this camera is the brain. This is my recorder, this is a separate lens, this is a battery that I have. Like, all you get, I mean, you have to provide your own monitor, audio, and battery. All you get is this. But once you do have all that connected though, it's not as bad as I was expecting to use. It does have a pretty steep learning curve, but you have the top row of buttons that cycles through the menus, can change the ISO, and it lets you like do the up and down selection. And it's got the OK like selection button. And on the front, there's another row of buttons, and these are all customizable to certain functions inside of the camera. You can't do everything, but it does enough. And there isn't a touchscreen interface or a big screen showing you what's going on. I mean, you got this little screen, and I think you can have it show you what the lens is seeing, but I can't do it. But once you get the menus figured out, it's actually pretty easy to get everything set up. So while it is intimidating at first, after some practice, it's not terrible, but like I said, it will take some figuring out to get to. But the most important column of a camera, especially for online content creator, is a little thing I call fiddliness. So what is fiddliness? We already talked about how easy it is to set up the body of the camera before you hit record, and that's incredibly important. But for an online content creator, you know, like myself, the most important part is how easy is it to get the footage you want after you hit record. Because maybe you have all the time in the world to set up your camera, you know, dial in your shot, get everything good and ready to go. But after you hit record, that's business time. Like, you don't got time to mess around after that. When it's business time, it's time to work. So how fiddly is the Zcam E2? And when you compare it to something like the GH5 or my Z6, you know, my two main cameras, it's pretty fiddly. Like we mentioned during the video test, not the vlogging test, but the video test, it doesn't have any kind of continuous autofocus, so that's gonna be a problem. Back to me in the studio real quick. So that's a misspoken phrase. Like we said earlier, there is autofocus built into it and even continuous autofocus built into the E2, but I just cannot get it to work either way. And that could very well be user error, and I'm absolutely not ashamed to admit that. I'm the everyday dad, not the everyday video professional. I press all the buttons with continuous autofocus on it, and I can't get the focusing functions to work at all in continuous autofocus. I need to then pop it back into manual focus so I can then manual focus the lens. So there is a setting that says autofocus, but the camera doesn't autofocus. I tried really hard. If you're, you know, a one-man crew, like right now, I'm so far away from the camera. Can you guys hear? We'll show you how far away we are from the GH5 right now. We'll record with the E2. Like, we are pretty darn far away from the camera, because if there was a phone app for the Zcam comparable to the Panasonic app, this would be a serious contender for maybe a studio or even a YouTuber camera. The GH5 is a staple in the YouTuber community, like, because it's got so many pro features. This has a lot of the same features, even some better features. So if they could figure out the app, this thing would be not very fiddly at all. But as of right now, it's super fiddly because you have to be able to manually touch the lens to dial in your focus. So fiddly, it's pretty darn fiddly. Back to the video. And we're back. So we've got the video quality, we've seen how easy or uneasy it is to use, but if you decide to get the E2, what is your upgrade path, or how does the ecosystem look? Well, it's certainly not in the same league as like a Red camera, where there is an expensive accessory for just about every function you could want. But thankfully, you don't exactly need that, as again, like we talked during the body thing, everything you need is already built into the camera. Now, this is meant to be a piece of a larger system of rigs, mounts, etc. So being as small as it is, and it is shockingly small for a cinema camera, it's actually pretty darn versatile in what you could do with this. Another big ecosystem benefit of the E2 is the micro four thirds lens mount. Now, some people might want a bigger sensor in a camera like this, but having that smaller sensor gives you more options. Like having the smaller lens mount lets you adapt darn near every kind of lens to be used on this. You could use pro level cinema lenses. You could use Canon EF lenses. I mean, basically, I think this has an incredible upgrade potential and could be a pretty serious cornerstone of a video system if you're willing to invest in it. Like, I think you could do some amazing things with this. So what, right? So should you get a Zcam E2? If you are like me and you make a lot of videos where you are in front of the camera, not physically controlling it, no, I would not get the Zcam E2 as much. There's just too much you would have to set up and need to mess with to make efficient use of your time. Like right now we're on a GH5, but I can use the GH5 app to be like my command center. That's the name of the game when it comes to online content creation. Efficiency, like efficiency in workflow, efficiency of gear, efficiency in yourself. And you know, you got to do this because you're going to be making a lot of these videos. The E2 does have a companion iOS app that's supposed to allow you to control the camera when not actually touching it. But again, like the autofocusing system, I cannot get it to work. I've got my phone to connect to the Wi-Fi system on the camera, but I cannot, from there, I can't get the app to connect to do anything. I've had the camera scanned for my phone. I've entered in the IP address. I've started it with the Wi-Fi connected and not connected, with the Wi-Fi antenna installed and not installed. I can get that's frustrating, is I can get the phone to connect to the Wi-Fi, but I can't get the app to show that the camera's there. And I cannot get this to work, and I've messed with this for hours this weekend. I mean, the camera does not come with any included instructions that would help with this. And that's the first time I really want one of those big, thick Canon books, is when I can't figure out how to use something like this. And I couldn't really find anything online either. If you could get an app that allowed for changing of focus, like when you're in front of it like this, like the GH5, I'd give this a much better fiddliness rating, and it would be easier for me to recommend it. I mean, it would never be a vlogging camera, but as a B-roll or a studio camera, this could be incredible. I do all of my B-roll in at least 180 frames per second. If I could get that continuously, on this thing, that would be amazing. Like, this could be such a powerful camera, and if the app works, leave a comment below and walk me through how to fix this, so by the time we get to Friday's video, we could have gotten this to work. And if you have a camera operator, or if you spend the majority of your time behind the camera, this might actually be a really good option for you. It records in ways that other cameras, especially at this price point, cannot even come close to touching internally. So this is a unique beast, and it still blows me away with its 4K 120 frames per second recording. Like that, if you need that, then absolutely get this camera. Thanks for watching.